I've got a great episode for you today right here on Extracting Wisdom. This is episode number 17. We'll be talking about what I like to call the law of frequency and how to transform your wax-ups to look just like a real tooth. Stay tuned. Hello, pre-dents, dentists, and fellow dental students. My name is Brandon Evert. I am your host of Extracting Wisdom. I'm broadcasting to you from the Windy City, Chicago, Illinois. I'm sorry about missing my last upload cycle. I usually upload episodes every other week on Mondays at 5 a.m. But this happened for two reasons. The first one is that I had the awesome opportunity to be a guest host on episode number 75 of the Life in Dentistry podcast. I had a blast talking with them, and they are great resources for pre-dental students, for dental students, and young dentists. So I really highly recommend that you guys go give these guys a listen and check out the episode and all the other episodes that they have available. And for the second reason, I had my very first exam week that week, so I was very busy and very hectic as I was studying to prepare for those exams. But now I'm back, and let's get into the show. So what I wanted to talk about first was studying for big exams. In previous episodes, I talked about methods that I used to study, but I didn't really mention my study pattern or my study schedule. And I think this is going to be really helpful for me to share with all of you. And I think this is a really important concept because we are very busy people, being pre-professional students, and we want to make the most of the limited time that we have. But at the same time, we want to make some of that time and dedicate that to taking mental breaks. And mental breaks are very important. So here's the deal. I want to talk about something that I like to call the law of frequency. What this is, I firmly believe that studying 3 times throughout a day for 20 to 30 minutes at a time is a far superior method than just, say studying for 3 hours straight through. This is because your brain is not going to operate at its highest capacity when you study for long durations. Maybe this works for some people, and if it does, all the power to you. But for me, especially, I find that I'm most productive within the first 20 to 30 minutes of studying, and then I really kind of fall off. So I like to study multiple times throughout the day, and split up your study time. Because if you split it up, then you're always studying with a fresh and rested mind. So therefore, you learn better and you're saving yourself time. And remember here, efficiency is the key. We're striving for efficiency to learn a lot of material in a short amount of time. And the best way that I found to do that is to study multiple times in short bursts throughout the day. Okay, so now let's take that a step further. Okay, as you study your 2 to 3 times a day, 4 times a day, whatever you want it to be, to further increase your efficiency, recall, and your level of understanding, it's important to also vary your study methods. Study different ways every time you study in a single day. Okay, and I'm going to give you a personal example of this. So I'm an early bird. I'm always up early every morning, and I work out. And then after I work out, I start studying at about 5:45 in the morning. Okay, and of course it's early. I'm tired, and I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be doing anything too strenuous. Okay, so I do flashcards. That's a fairly easy way to study and kind of test myself if I am keeping up with the material. So that's what I do in the morning, is I do flashcards. After class, when I come home, I will tend to read over notes, draw diagrams, pathways, schematics, any way that I can visually represent the material. This is another great way to study. And then finally, in the evenings, this is another form of studying, and it also helps prepare myself for the next day, is that I'll make more flashcards at night that I can study the next morning. So I'm sort of reviewing material at the same time as I am creating study material for the next day. And so this is what I actually do to study every single day. And for the most part, I can say that it's a great method to study. You're studying consistently, you're studying efficiently, and you're studying the material in multiple different formats. And that's really just an excellent approach whenever you're studying. Obviously, this is the way I study personally. What works for me might not work for you. But the thing is to try out different methods of studying at different times of the day and see what works for you, see what doesn't work. So I encourage you, do some experimenting, try some different study methods throughout different times of the day, and see what works best for you. But I can guarantee if you study in short bursts throughout the day and vary your studying techniques, you're going to be a rock star when it comes to taking exams. Okay, so that's what I like to call the law of frequency. And I urge you, try it out. See how it works for you. All right, now I kind of want to switch gears a little bit and talk about wax-ups for you dental students. And I really want to help you make your wax-ups look more lifelike and more tooth-like. And for you pre-dental students out there, just so we're on the same page, a wax-up is pretty much what it sounds like. In dental school, you are typically given a dental model and either a partial tooth or just the root of a tooth, and you have to use wax to form the shape of the tooth and the crown of the tooth. And this is the way you're going to learn dental anatomy. All right, so one thing that you must always remember, this is one of my biggest tips, is that you have to add and define your line angles, okay? Line angles are where two tooth surfaces meet and where they come together on a tooth. And let's just define this a little bit. Teeth have different surfaces. You have your buccal, your mesial, your lingual, and your distal surfaces. So when these two surfaces come together, that's what we like to call a line angle, okay? And the placement of these line angles varies depending on what tooth you're working on, but you always have to make sure that they are there and that you define them. This is really what's going to form the contour of the tooth that makes it look so real and so lifelike, okay? And I have a really good picture of demonstrating this concept on my Instagram, so go on over and check it out. I was waxing up tooth number 5, which is a maxillary first premolar, and I was really unhappy about how it looked, and I couldn't quite figure out why it didn't look like a tooth quite yet, until one of my professors was talking about line angles, and all of a sudden I had this aha moment. My premolar looked too ovoid or too round. And so I went in and added especially the buccal line angles, and that really made my tooth look real. So one thing, don't forget your line angles. Now, when making your line angles, I want to give you just a couple tips. You might have a preference of what instrument to use. I really would like to make a suggestion. Ward's Carver. That is my instrument of choice for pretty much everything when it comes to wax-ups. The flat side of Ward's Carver is excellent for making occlusal grooves, for defining lingual anatomy, smoothing different surfaces of the tooth. That's great. The hockey stick side is awesome as well for really especially rounding surfaces, whether this is on your buccal surface or lingual surface. It's a really, really great overall tool. Now, here are a couple other tips as far as wax-ups that I've kind of learned on my own. Especially when you get to wax-ups of posterior teeth, premolars and molars, the best procedure is to, first of all, define your line angles, define your buccal and lingual anatomy. Do all of that first. Don't jump straight to your occlusal anatomy, okay? But when you get to that occlusal anatomy, the best way to start is to build with wax. A lot of students will like to do their initial buildup and then carve out their occlusal anatomy. Okay, I found it much easier to use wax to build your occlusal anatomy as opposed to carving, okay? If that makes sense and if you can visualize that. I just think it's a lot easier to put wax where you want it, and this takes some practice building with wax, but I found it a lot more efficient to build your occlusal anatomy up as opposed to carving it out. So give that a try next time you might have some difficulties with your wax up. Try those different techniques and see how it works. And I think this is where I'm going to wrap it up. I hope those two things were helpful for you to hear. First of all, remember when you're studying, use the law of frequency. Don't study for hours upon hours and waste all of that time because you're not productive for that full duration while you're studying. Really split up your studying into 20, 30, 40-minute bursts throughout the day, 2 to 3 times a day, and you're going to find yourself being a much more efficient studier. As well as when it comes to wax-ups for you dental students, don't forget your line angles. Those are one of the most important parts of your wax-up. So make sure, don't forget about those and define them, put them in the correct location, depending on what tooth you're working on, and your wax-ups are going to look a lot more lifelike. I know it's a lot easier said than done. It just takes practice. And don't get stressed. That's one thing about wax-ups. People get stressed all the time, and I really think that stress revolving around wax-ups really contributes to maybe a poor outcome. So just take your time, relax, and have fun. If you think waxing is fun, I think you're gonna have a blast, and your wax-up's gonna come out great. So don't stress. Use those techniques and really make that wax-up look like a real tooth. So thank you guys again so much for tuning in to episode number 17 of Extracting Wisdom. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Once again, my name is Brandon Evert, signing out.
My demons dwell, my own little nightmare, I call it hell, oh well. It's time to get back up, climbing and climbing. I'm done with this ride, is what I tell myself, so I could feel something else. Yeah, I guess I had my bad days, but it doesn't mean I lost my style. Where were you when my heart was on the ground?